So my name is Joel Pitney. I call myself a book launch specialist, which means that I work with authors in more or less every aspect of the book launching process, the marketing and the social media, all different ways of getting your book out to the world. I work with published authors, and I also work with self-published authors. And I was very fortunate to be contacted by Reedsy to give a conversation or give a talk today about how I help my clients get endorsements for their books. So the talk today is going to be broken up into 3 sections, and there's going to be a chance for you to answer questions at the end of each section. So we're going to start off, we're going to talk about, well, why should you get endorsements for your book? And then we'll get into the meat of the talk, which is really going to be about how. What's the way that anyone can start to generate endorsements for their book? And then the third and final phase before the Q&A, we're going to talk about, well, what do you do once you get those endorsements, which is important. So I'm going to kick things off here. One of the most common things I get when I start working with an author about reaching out to get people to help them promote their book, whether that be any kind of favor to help them spread the word about the book, but particularly asking them to give them an endorsement. I often get a lot of resistance, especially for people who may be a first-time book publisher. They say, well, I don't know anybody. It seems like it's a lot of trouble and effort. Or they might, even if they kind of initially see the value in doing it, people might get really nervous or shy about wanting to reach out, because it's a very vulnerable thing to do, to take this work that you've been working on so diligently and so preciously and then hand it over to somebody else and then say, hey, what do you think? That's a very vulnerable moment. But so one of the things I like to really tell people right up front is that on the whole, the experience ends up being an extremely positive one. It's one of the most enjoyable and fulfilling parts of the book launch journey after you've written the book, is starting to reach out to people that either you know or maybe even people that you've never met before, and start to see them responding to your work and writing kind words. And it's almost always very kind words. It's a very confidence-inspiring process, and it really helps kind of turbocharge the rest of your book launch campaign. So for that reason, it's a very important thing to do. So why get endorsements for your book? I mean, some of the answers are quite obvious, right? So if you've gotten endorsements for the book, it helps establish authority, right? You're able to put those endorsements on Amazon or on your website or on the book cover, on the front or the back. And having someone with a name or a title that's significant in your field can really lend some authority to you. It can also have that bandwagon effect. You know, if so-and-so likes it, then maybe I should check it out as well. So those are kind of the obvious reasons to get endorsements. But the less obvious reason, and the one that I get really interested in, is that it starts to establish a relationship with you and these other people. So they may be people that you already know in your network, but maybe this is the first time you've approached them about your book. It could also be someone that you've never met before that you really wanted to reach out to and get an endorsement for. And by often people feel very honored to endorse your book. So it's a really good way to get them excited about your book and then open up the possibilities of doing other things for you later. Perhaps tweeting about the book or posting it on their social media networks or letting other people know about it. So that's another less talked about reason for wanting to get endorsements for your book. We're going to go ahead and move on to phase 2, which is how do you do it? This is the $64,000 question. So I have the approach I like to use has a few different phases to it. The first thing I like to do when I'm trying to figure out, when I'm launching an endorsement campaign, is make sure that I have all the requisite materials. This might seem like kind of an obvious point, but this can be a bit of a crunch, because a lot of writers are trying to finish their manuscripts up until the 18th, you know, the final hour of the publishing process. And yet it's really important to get your endorsements on the early side so that you can start using this part of your outreach and publicity and marketing campaign. So, but you can't really get an endorsement for your book until you have at least a first draft of a manuscript. Sometimes there are some people who might write a few kind words while you're still finishing the book, but really you need to have something that you can send out. It can be uncorrected in whatever format you feel comfortable sending to people, but you are going to need to have something finished. So it's important to plan ahead on this for that reason. So the next phase of the process, once you have your materials put together, is you just want to get clear about your target audience, and this is something you want to be doing for your book launch anyway. But you want to be clear. Well, who are the types of readers that I'm trying to reach, and where are they reachable? And so for example, if you have a cookbook, right? And you're going after urban 20-somethings who want quick, innovative, but not too difficult to make recipes, then you're going to want to think about potential endorsers whose names or titles would appeal to that demographic. You don't want to have someone who would be irrelevant from that. So it's important to think about who you're trying to reach. And then the next stage in the process that follows on pretty quickly from that is making your list. And this is where a lot of the planning really comes down to it. So who are the types of people you want to endorse your book? The way I like to think about it is that it's someone who has either a name or a title. So a name would be anyone who could be recognizable to people in your target audience. So they don't necessarily have to be a household name, but if you're trying to reach people within a very specific field, for instance, and you reach out to an author who might be fairly well known to that specific field, then that would be someone who has a name. So you want to think about, well, who are the people who have somewhat of a name? And then secondarily, you want to think about who might have an important title, right? Because a lot of times you won't actually know who the person is, but if they have an impressive title, you might pay attention to it better as someone who's looking at the different endorsements that you have. So an easy one are other authors. So other authors who are published in that genre. Anybody who's written a book immediately has authority because they're considered an author. People who have doctorate degrees in your area of study. So if you're doing, I think someone was talking about space science earlier. So if someone has a PhD in space science or something related, you might want to get an endorsement from them for your book. People who are, if you're writing a business book, for instance, oftentimes it's nice to have people who are CEOs. If you can get someone who's a CEO or a founder of a company, their title can carry weight. So you want to think about people who have a big name or a big title, and you want to start to create that list. So the second part of so I kind of break up making your list into two phases. I always like to start with the people that you know. Oftentimes when you're thinking about marketing, it's really easy to overlook all the people who are just right under your nose and just think about all the new people you want to meet. Whether you have a huge network or no network at all, there tends to be this psychological thing that happens with people. They always want to think about the new people. How do I meet the new people? But I always say start with the people you know. Every single one of us knows somebody, even if you think you don't. There's somebody that you have a connection with in your world. It could be an old professor. It could be a business colleague. It could be someone that you've done volunteer work with. There's someone out there that you could reach out to who falls into these categories of having a name or a title that would be willing to take a look at your book. So I always like to start there. That's my first list. Those are the first people I go after. A, you're going to get a higher response rate from them, and it's going to build your confidence. And then B, you can use their words. Use their words when you start reaching out to people that you don't know, and show that, hey, so and so endorsed this. I should pay attention to it too, potentially. So then the next group, once you've gotten the group of people that you do know, the next group is the people that you don't know. So you want to think about this is where you want to think really big. Everybody always puts Oprah on every single list that I make with them, which is kind of funny. I've never been able to get one from her. It's really hard to get through to Oprah. But you want to think big here. You want to think big and small. You want to think anybody who falls into who has a name or a title that could work for you, that would be important to your target audience. And you want to think of the number one best-selling author in that area, as well as some more approachable folks, authors in that genre, or whatever type of person you're reaching out to. So you want to make that list. My lists, and again, you want to think big and you want to think broad. So when I do a list like this, I always have at least 100 names on it. of the people I don't know. The people I know, it depends on how many people the author actually knows. But I always have at least 100, and I've had up to 200 names on those lists before. Good places to look for those kind of things, you can use Google searches, right? So depending on what your genre is, you can do Google searches for thought leaders in that category. Going to Amazon and looking at the best sellers in certain genres that are similar to yours is a good way to go too. And you can often find people's websites and then their contact information for all those people. So you create your list, which has the people you know and the people you don't know. And then once you've done that, the next step is to create a compelling outreach package. And that has what I like to use. I like to put together a little PDF document, a little digital sample of the book. It's something very simple. It includes a cover. It includes a little pitch about the book. So you want to have, something, about 300 to 500 words of marketing copy, the kind of thing you'd use to describe your book on Amazon, that kind of gives them a sense of what the book is. You want to include eventually a page that has any of the endorsements that you've already received. So as you get new ones in, you can add to there and you can kind of give people a sense, hey, other people are talking about it. I like to include the table of contents because it gives people a sense of the breadth of the book. For fiction books, there often isn't a table of contents, but if you have a table of contents for a nonfiction, then include that. Then I like to include the first few chapters, which would include things like the preface, the foreword, the intro, the author's note, and then a couple of the first few chapters, just to give people a sense of what the book is right up front before you send them anything more. So I like to create this package so that I'm ready to go. I've got my list of all the people I want to reach out to. I found their contact information online, and then I want to create these outreach packages that I can send to them. So then the next phase is, okay, we've got all these materials. What I want to do is I want to craft my emails. And these emails, I try to marry a one-size-fits-all approach. So making as much of that email a template as possible while also personalizing the email, because you have a lot of emails to write. You might have 150 to 200 people to write to, and you want to be able to get through this quickly. You should definitely send these as one-offs. Don't send a mass email, even if people are BCC'd. Don't try to use some kind of email system like Constant Contact or Aweber to do a dear first name and then send it to them. People will know that they're receiving a mass email. You need to send them a personalized email. You'll get a much better response rate. But you can still use some standard copy that you've written. And I'm going to be publishing a little article along with this webinar, and I'll include some samples of what a sample pitch letter might look like. But it's always a combination of having some basic things like, hello, my name is so-and-so. I have a new book out that I think you'd be interested in. And then you want to give them a description of what the book is that's going to be relevant to them. So you really want to this is where you want to put on your empathy hat. And you want to really emphasize them way more than you emphasize you. So you want to hammer on anything that has a common interest. If you know them, of course, you're going to refer to your relationship with them. But still, you want to make an effort to talk about, well, how has your book, how has it been inspired by them? Maybe they're one of your heroes, or they're someone who's super established in the field that you're writing in. You want to talk about that. You want to say maybe your book has a mission behind it. Maybe there's an altruistic mission behind your book, and there's someone who's working for that same mission. So you want to talk about how you both share that same mission. You want to find a way to make some kind of connection with them, so they feel like their ego is being stroked in just the right way. You want to flatter them, and you don't want to lay it on too thick, but you want to be appropriate. Because these people, especially the people you don't know, they've never heard of you before. So you want to find a way to kind of cut through the chaff. So once you've assembled your emails, it's a matter of starting to write to people. And again, what I often will do is I'll get a couple email windows up on my browser, and I'll have a couple different styles of template that that I've developed, and I'll just copy one and I'll paste it in, and then I'll personalize it for that person, and then I'll send it off, and then I'll go to the next person on my list, and I'll grab the template that makes the most sense for them. I'll slap it in there, I'll personalize it, then I'll send it off. And what I find is that you're going to learn a lot as you go through the process. Often, as you assemble your list and you write your email templates and you assemble your materials, you'll have one idea of what's going to work. But as you go through, as you actually write something, sometimes new ideas come up for you. So your template and your process is probably going to evolve as you go through the process. So the final step in this process is following up. I don't necessarily, so this has kind of two phases. For the people who you know, you want to follow up just because you know them. So a lot of people are super busy. The fact that they don't get back to you does not mean they're not interested. Often you're making a big request of them, and the way that I manage my inbox sometimes is I'll see something, I don't want to deal with it right away, but I'm interested in it, and it falls back to the end of my inbox, and then 2 weeks later I realize I've forgotten it. So you don't want to take anything personally. You want to have really thick skin. And for the people that you know, you just want to follow up. Be bold. It's okay. Of course, you need to respect the nature of your relationship with them, and you don't want to be too pushy, but you don't want to be dissuaded by the fact that they haven't gotten back to you right away. For the people that you don't know, I generally don't bother with the follow-up. For that one, unless it's someone really special that you really think you can get and you want to try and reach them, I generally just send one email, and for me that's more of a numbers game. You know, if you throw 100 emails at people you haven't met before, I tend to get a 25% response rate on that, roughly speaking, somewhere between 15 and 35, depending on the campaign. So you throw those ones out there, and you don't necessarily send a follow-up. But once you do get a response, you want to be ready to go. So point number one was have your manuscript ready. So this is why you need it. You want to make sure that they have the option of getting either the digital copy or the paperback version or hardcover if that's what you have, if they want it. And so you want to have all those ready. If you want to have your paperback copies ordered from, Ingram Spark or CreateSpace or Kindle Direct Publishing, then you get them. Or from your publisher. You want to make sure you have those on hand so you can send them out. And then you want to have your digital version ready to send those out as soon as they get them. And then you want to give them some time. I like to give people a timeline. I like to say, hey, I usually think a reasonable request is 2 to 3 weeks, but you want to be flexible. Let them know, hey, I'd love to have something in 2 to 3 weeks. You can often say, if you get it to me on the sooner side, there'll be more of a chance that I can include it on the interior of the book or on the back cover. You don't want to promise that because you never know. You want to be able to choose who you're going to present. And then you start reaching out. And then if you haven't heard back from them after a little while, ping them, give them a couple weeks. Again, you don't want to be pushy with people, but you also don't want to be dissuaded by it. You don't want to misinterpret their silence as a lack of interest. People are busy. So everybody, I would say that just about 100% of the people that I reach out to for endorsements and who agree eventually get one to me, even if it takes a little bit of cat herding. So just be persistent. So that is the whole how-to process, and there's a lot of little details within that. And like I said, I have an article that I'll be publishing on Reedsy along with this that you can kind of fill in some of the details. I'm going to want to open it up to questions, but I kind of feel like maybe I should just talk a little bit about how to use your endorsements, and then we can open up for a big question session at the end here because we're getting close to the allotted presentation time. So how do you use your endorsements? There's a lot of obvious ones. So the book cover is a good one. The front cover, I only use an endorsement on a front cover if it's a really significant one, or the words are just so perfect and so compelling that they really add value to the book. Also, they have to make sense aesthetically. Sometimes a cover design doesn't quite work with an endorsement. So I end up putting a endorsement on the front cover 25% of the time. You can also have a couple pages on the inside where you list all of your endorsements, and that's a place that someone, when they're in the bookstore, they could pick it up and flip open to the first couple pages, and you could list all your endorsements in their full form there. Another place that you can use them is on the back cover. I generally like to have 3 to 4 book endorsements on the back cover. I think that endorsements are as important, if not more important, than descriptions of the book and author bios. I like to have my author bios on the inside of the book, and then I like to have a little description, and then 3 to 4 edited versions of your endorsements. You don't want to do the full ones. You just want to use a line or two. Another really, really great place to use your endorsements is on your Amazon page. So the best way to do that is if you have an Amazon Author Central account set up. This will allow you to edit how your book appears on Amazon, regardless of whether you're self-publishing or going through a publisher. And there's a little area, there's a little section when once you've set up an Amazon Author Central account, you can access your book page, and you can add. There's a space where you can add endorsements, and so that's a really nice thing to add to your Amazon page, which is ultimately where a lot of people make their purchase. Also on your website, it's a really, really beautiful thing to have on an author website. The author websites that I build always have really beautiful endorsements with people's pictures on there if you can, and their words, and it's a really great way to kind of build a very positive feeling, and also to tell people a little bit about what the book is, because oftentimes an endorsement can describe your book in a way that you can't. You can also use especially some of your more popular endorsements in your promotional campaign. So, if you've got a Facebook campaign going, you can say, hey, check out this new endorsement I got from so-and-so, and you can tag them so that their fans can see it too, and then publish your endorsement there. You can also take those endorsements and make those little picture quotes. So you could take a picture that would either have your book cover on it, or you could also have just a really cool image and then put their little quote about your book, and with a URL to where to buy it. So that's a really good thing to do. If you're doing email marketing campaigns to people in your audience, you can include that endorsement in that. And then all kinds of other promotional materials, whether they be PR, press releases, marketing pitches. Anytime you're talking about your book, you can draw on these endorsements to use them. Again, we were talking in the beginning, one of the big reasons to get an endorsement is because it can open up avenues for further engagement. So you want to make sure that once someone has actually endorsed the book, you want to make sure you follow up, and obviously you want to be very grateful and you want to thank them, but you also want to find the right way to ask them, hey, would you be willing to also spread the word about a book when it's published? You already have a really great in there, and oftentimes they'll be willing to extend that favor to you as well. Thank you everyone for tuning in. It was a pleasure to get to meet you virtually. It's kind of an interesting medium for that. If you have any other questions for me about this, you can contact me through my Reedsy profile. I wish congratulations to all of you. Writing a book is an absolutely fabulous and often heroic task, and I wish you all luck on your book launch journeys. So we'll meet again. Thank you.